My husband left me crying at the train station on our wedding anniversary. He looked me in the eye, cold, sharp, and whispered, "Celebrate alone. I'm done with you." Then he walked away. I stood frozen, my suitcase beside me, the rain dripping from the roof above, and the whole station buzzing around me. No one cared. No one stopped. No one saw me breaking apart. But what I didn't know was that this moment, this cruel abandonment, would become the beginning of something I never expected. That morning, I woke up before the alarm. The room was still dark, the curtains half open, letting in a slice of gray dawn. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing beside me. It was steady, cold, mechanical, like the sound of someone sleeping next to a stranger. I wanted to reach out, to touch his shoulder, to whisper, "Happy anniversary." But something inside me hesitated. It had been hesitating for months. I got out of bed quietly, walked to the mirror, and looked at myself. I had chosen my dress carefully the night before, soft, elegant, simple. I wanted to look like the woman he once fell in love with. I wanted to remind him, remind myself. As I brushed my hair, I remembered our first trip together. The laughter, the way he held my hand like he was afraid to lose me. He used to tell me, "With you, even waiting for a train feels like an adventure." Back then, I believed him. Back then, every word from his mouth felt like a promise. But promises fade. And love can turn into silence. When he finally woke up, he didn't even look at me. He just muttered, "Are you ready yet? We'll miss the train." No kiss. No smile. Not even a "happy anniversary." I forced a smile and said softly, "Yes, I'm ready." But inside, I was already breaking. As we packed the last of our things, I tried to start conversations. I asked about the weather, the hotel, the plans we had made months ago. He answered with one word. Always one word. "Fine. Sure. Whatever." Each reply was like a door closing in my face. When we stepped outside, the air was heavy with the smell of rain. Drops clung to the pavement, glistening under the streetlights. I walked beside him, but I felt like I was walking alone. His steps were faster than mine, his shoulders tense, his eyes fixed forward as if I wasn't even there. I tried again, my voice almost a whisper. "Do you remember our first trip? The one where we got lost in that little town and ended up dancing in the rain?" For a moment, I hoped. For a moment, I thought he would smile, laugh, remember. But instead, he sighed and said, "Don't bring that up. We don't have time for memories." And in that second, I felt it. The wall between us. The distance that no train, no journey, no celebration could ever close again. I held on to my suitcase tighter. I told myself, "It's just stress. He's tired. Once we get there, he'll be different. Once we sit on that train, maybe we'll find each other again." But deep down, I already knew. That morning wasn't the beginning of a trip together. It was the beginning of the end. The station was alive that morning. A chaos of voices, footsteps, and rushing lives. Loudspeakers echoed departures in a flat metallic tone. Children laughed as they ran past, their shoes slapping against the wet floor. Suitcases rolled, vendors shouted, the smell of coffee and damp asphalt hung in the air. To everyone else, it was just another day. But to me, it felt like the end of the world disguised as an ordinary morning. I walked beside him, trying to match his pace. But his steps were sharp, impatient, almost as if he was running away from something. From me. His hand never reached for mine. His eyes never searched for me in the crowd. I was there, but invisible. I tried to break the silence. I whispered, "I'm glad we're finally doing this trip. I think it will be good for us." He didn't slow down. Didn't even look at me. All he said was, "Don't start. Don't start." 2 words. But they hit me harder than a scream. We stopped in front of the platform. The train wasn't there yet. People stood in small groups, families, couples, friends, laughing, talking, living. I looked at them and wondered, when had I lost that with him? When had I stopped being his partner and turned into his burden? And then it happened. The moment burned into my memory forever. He turned to me suddenly, his eyes cold, his face tight with irritation. And in a voice sharp enough to cut glass, he said, "You always ruin everything. Always late. Always dramatic. Always too much." The words sliced through me. I felt my throat close, my hands shaking around the handle of my suitcase. I whispered back, barely audible over the noise of the crowd, "But it's our anniversary." For a second, I searched his face for a flicker of regret. A sign of the man who once held me in the rain and told me he couldn't live without me. But there was nothing. Only a cruel smirk. A hollow laugh. And then he said it. The words that shattered me completely. "Then celebrate it alone." He turned. He walked away. His figure disappeared into the crowd, swallowed by strangers and shadows. I couldn't move. My chest felt heavy, my legs frozen to the ground. The station around me blurred. Voices faded into echoes, footsteps into noise. I was drowning in silence. People passed by, some glancing for a second, then looking away quickly. No one stopped. No one cared. I was just another face in the station. Just another woman holding a suitcase she could barely carry, trying not to collapse. And in that moment, surrounded by hundreds of people, I had never felt more alone. I stood there, frozen, while the world kept moving. Announcements echoed, trains arrived, trains left. Children laughed. Couples kissed. Life didn't pause just because mine had shattered. I wanted to collapse right there on the platform. To let the weight of his words crush me. "You ruin everything. Celebrate alone." They echoed in my head, over and over, like a cruel chant. But then, through the blur of my tears, I saw it. The ticket counter. It glowed under the fluorescent lights. A small booth, ordinary to everyone else. But to me, in that moment, it was a doorway. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was anger. Maybe pride. Maybe survival. But something inside me whispered, if he can leave you behind, then why not leave him behind too? I gripped the handle of my suitcase tighter. My steps were shaky at first, weak, uncertain. But with every stride, I felt something shift inside me. When I reached the counter, the clerk barely looked up. A man with tired eyes, tapping his pen against the desk. "Where to?" he asked flatly. I opened my mouth, but no words came. For a moment, I hesitated. Should I go home? Should I chase after him? Should I just stand there and disappear into nothing? Then my hand moved on its own. I slid the money across the counter and said, "1 ticket. First class." The clerk blinked, surprised. But he printed it without a word. And when he handed me the ticket, I stared at it as if it were gold. It was more than paper, more than ink. It was power. It was freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for his approval. I wasn't begging for his attention. I wasn't clinging to a love that no longer existed. This was my choice, my decision, my escape. I pressed the ticket against my chest and closed my eyes. The tears were still there, hot and heavy, but behind them something new burned. Strength. The loudspeaker announced the train's arrival. The ground trembled as the engine pulled in. The sleek silver body glistened with raindrops under the station lights. Doors slid open with a soft hiss. And for the first time that day, I stepped forward, not because he led the way, not because someone held my hand, but because I chose to move. I chose me. The doors slid open with a hiss. Warm light spilled out onto the wet platform, wrapping me in a glow I didn't expect. I hesitated at the threshold, clutching my suitcase with one hand, the ticket with the other. The same platform where I had been abandoned now stood behind me, and in front of me a choice. I stepped inside. The cabin was silent. First class. Soft leather seats, neatly aligned. The faint scent of polished wood and expensive fabric. The hum of the air system. The world outside disappeared the moment the doors closed behind me. I sank into a window seat, pressing the ticket against my lap as if it were a shield. For a moment, all I could hear was my own breathing. Fast, uneven, like I had run for miles without moving at all. Tears welled again, but this time they fell differently. Not just grief, not just heartbreak, but release. Through the glass, I watched the platform blur as the train began to move. The same platform where he walked away without looking back. The same ground where I begged silently for him to stay. And now it was shrinking, fading into the distance. A lump rose in my throat, but with it came a strange calm. I whispered to myself, barely audible, "He left me behind. But I'm still moving forward." Across the aisle, an older man sat reading a newspaper. He lowered it for just a second, glanced at me with kind eyes, and spoke softly. "Sometimes traveling alone is the only way to find where you truly belong." His voice wasn't pity. It wasn't judgment. It was truth. Simple. Gentle. But it hit me harder than anything my husband had ever said in years. I smiled weakly, nodding, though my voice failed me. He returned to his paper, as if nothing had happened. But inside me, something had shifted. The rhythm of the train filled the silence. Steady, powerful, unstoppable. Every turn of the wheels carried me further away from the woman I had been. The woman who begged, who waited, who accepted crumbs of love. I touched the glass with the tips of my fingers, watching the rain streak across it. And I realized, this train wasn't just taking me to another city. It was carrying me out of my old life. It was carrying me back to myself. For the first time in so long, I felt free. The train raced through the countryside, slicing through fields drowned in rain. Raindrops slid across the glass beside me, each one blurring, vanishing, like the years I had wasted. I closed my eyes and leaned back against the seat. Memories flooded in. The dinners filled with silence. The sharp words disguised as jokes. The way he stopped reaching for my hand. The way I stopped asking, because begging for love felt worse than the emptiness itself. I thought about the woman I used to be. The girl who believed that love could fix anything. The girl who thought being chosen was the same as being valued. That girl had been left behind on that platform. And maybe she needed to be. Because as the train carried me forward, I realized something. I didn't need someone who left me behind. I needed someone who would walk beside me. And if that someone wasn't him, then maybe, just maybe, it was me. I whispered to my reflection in the window. Maybe I am enough. Maybe I was always enough. The words felt strange at first, foreign. But as I repeated them, they grew stronger, more real, more mine. The older man across the aisle glanced at me again, a faint smile in his eyes. It was as if he knew, as if he could see the storm passing inside me. But he didn't speak. He didn't need to. I watched the landscape blur into streaks of green and gray. Every mile stretched the distance between me and him, between who I was and who I was becoming. By the time the train slowed for the next stop, my tears had dried. My hands no longer trembled. I wasn't healed, no. Healing takes time. But I was no longer broken. I was someone new. Someone who had chosen herself. Someone who had bought a first-class ticket. Not just on a train, but in life. And that realization burned inside me, warm and steady. My husband left me crying at the station on our anniversary. But that day, he gave me something he never meant to. The chance to walk away. The chance to begin again. The chance to finally ride first class.